Yeah,
Do
just
it.
don't overthink it. And I'm just going, what could possibly go wrong?
You live in a house with how many people? What kind of freak family are you?
I was going to move out, but that's not what the Lord had.
Once I was able to ride my bike, I was over at their house all the time too.
What are some of the, more of the benefits of living in a multi-generational home? Hello, and we are back for another episode of Welcome to the Medins. As you guys can see, I actually have a guest on this one.
Yay, guests!
If you haven't kept up on the last few episodes, most of them are me talking about kind of what's been going on with Mikla and myself. Mikla is what I call my wife, Michaela. And kind of updating you guys on why kind of took a break for a couple weeks and hadn't kept up with the shorts and the reels, but then telling you guys about vacations, trips, and other thoughts and things that have been on my mind. One of the episodes recently, I was actually considering re-filming it because I hadn't felt as though I'd been as concise and on top of the topic as I have with other topics in the past. My wife said, just edit and post it. I don't think
Just
you
get
should.
it out there.
Yeah,
Do
just
it.
don't overthink it. And I'm just going, what could possibly go wrong from that? But my wife also made a comment recently, jokingly going, you guys should post more controversial things so you can get more views. Like, honey.
Wow.
But that coming from the same woman who you don't see very much on camera.
Maybe we know why now, huh?
She's like, I don't know what my husband's going to say. But this episode I'm quite excited about. A topic that is very near and dear to us is multi-generational living. And here you have two generations. But we also live with my grandparents on my dad's side.
Yes.
And that's the way it has been
Your whole life.
my whole life. So 30 plus years of being alive. And I honestly, I've never known any different. I did anticipate after I graduated college and getting married that I was going to move out, but that's not what the Lord had up to this point. And now our home has 4 generations in it because now it has kids of ours. So talk about multi-generational home living.
Yeah.
Mom, this was a topic that you had brought up, saying that you think it'd be pretty important, especially after COVID. A lot more people need to do kind of multi-generational living, but it's also been something people have asked you a lot about.
Yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm hearing about it a lot more often now post-COVID. I mean, pre-COVID, people were like, good for you. You live in a house with how many people? What kind of freak family are you? But
They're so kind, like in YouTube comment section.
yeah, be nice.
It is family-friendly entertainment. Keep that in mind.
We did have, I do remember there was one person pre-COVID who asked me questions about multi-generational living because he and his wife were going to build a grandparent addition on their child's home. And he just wanted to hear from me any positives or negatives of our experience. But post-COVID, I will say I am hearing more and more people who are saying, my grown married child can't afford to buy a house. My kids are just wanting to be closer to us. We're really wanting to get to know our grandkids better. I think there's some solid reasons for doing this.
And I've been hearing a lot from people in my generation, like they get married and then they start talking about moving back home because they're going to start a family and they want their kids to be close to their grandparents.
Yeah. And I grew up close to my grandparents. Until I was 6, I lived right next door to my mom's mom. And as a little kid, we had there was like a hedge in between the houses. And there was a little slit in the hedge where we could just run through to grandma's house. And we were over there all the time. And my cousins lived right down the road. So it was awesome growing up like that. And then when we moved away, we moved to the town where my other grandparents lived, and we lived like a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles from them. So once I was able to ride my bike, I was over at their house all the time too.
And I think it is really beneficial. Like, there are a lot of us growing up, which y'all know by now. And if you read our bio, it describes that. And so with there being so many, being now a dad of 5, there's a lot you got to keep your eyes on.
Mm-hmm.
And just having two sets of eyes between my wife and I, we're sometimes going, where's this kiddo? And thinking like, well, it could be 2 to 2 and that's pretty easy, but now there's a fifth. Right now, the fifth you can wear anywhere, which is kind of
she's
helpful.
Easy.
But at some
she
point,
just sleeps all the time,
which I really enjoy, and she's super cute.
Yeah.
But at some point, she's going to be big enough to wander around just as freely as her older siblings. I had heard several times growing up how you guys really appreciated the extra eyes on us.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't plan to live like this. When we got married, we planned to have our own place and just like most people do, I think. But then we also planned to have a large family. It wasn't an accident. It didn't just happen. It was planned. We knew we wanted a lot of children. And so we were having that conversation with John's parents, my in-laws, who are wonderful people. If you ever get to meet them, they're wonderful people. And they said, well, we always wish we had had more kids. We'd love to help. And when that offer came, I'm not sure they knew what they were walking into, but they have been a huge help. And it was like having two sets of parents, but the dividing line was, and I don't think it was never a point of contention, right? It was just, there was a respect there that, like we knew that they had already successfully parented 4 children plus any number of people who had come through their house over the years. And so we knew we could go to them for advice when we needed it, but they didn't offer advice. They didn't just come in and go, you know what, you're not doing this right. This kid is screaming. You need to figure it out. They would wait for us to ask. And then the advice would come. So that worked really well. And the kids learned to respect their elders. Mom and dad, my in-laws, they said that they felt young having all these people here, having these kids around all the time. So it was just a win-win, I think.
I don't think I actually ever heard or knew the origin of like that conversation of, hey, why don't we all live together the rest of our lives? Was it more than that, or was it just like, hey, can we live with you? Yeah, great, cool. All right, help us raise our kids, please.
No, it was so after college. Well, when we got married, we moved to college, and then when we graduated, we moved out to DC for a year. And when we came back from DC, your dad was starting law school. We had no money because what we were doing in DC was a ministry thing. And so we had been, people had been supporting us. So we came back, no job, no money, poor, broke college graduates, law school student, and we were pregnant. And so mom and dad said, well, you can live in our basement basically until you get on your feet financially. And so we moved in and had our first baby, loved having the help. I mean, who doesn't, right? You're exhausted and somebody says, hey, you haven't slept the night through in 6 weeks. Can we take your baby tonight so you can sleep? Yes, please. Right? And just having that extra set of hands and also having somebody with experience right there. Because, when you have a baby, you have a ton of questions. They do something and you're like, what do I do? And to have somebody there you go, look, he's got this rash. Does this look normal to you? And they can either go, yeah, that's totally normal. Or they can go, hey, you should probably take that baby in. Super helpful. It's like having a nanny that you don't have to pay.
I mean, you kind of pay with grandchildren.
You do. But it was fantastic. So we started looking for a house probably, I don't know, a couple of years, maybe a year in, maybe a couple of years, probably closer to like when your dad was going to graduate. And, because we were living in a basement, sharing an upstairs kitchen, and I mean, it was going well. But like any young married woman, I kind of wanted my own space. And we just couldn't find something that the things that we could afford were pretty dumpy. Let's put it that way. So yeah, we just were like, can we stay? And is this working okay? And they said, yeah. So it's all good.
And here we are, obviously still many years later, and now their grandkids and great grandkids are living in the house too.
Yeah.
What are some of the, like, more of the benefits of living in a multi-generational home, having, you know, whether it be your parents or in-law parents there, than even just like kind of financial help?
I think there's a huge, well, like mom and dad say it keeps them younger. And I would agree, now being the grandparent, like I could come home from work and sit on a couch and, drink coffee and watch a movie, or I can play with the kids, or I can help, or I can try to pitch in. And so there's just that sort of natural movement piece that keeps you physically more active. For you guys, I feel like it was a chance for you to learn to respect your elders every day. Because, in our society, older people often get sort of cast aside, right? Or overlooked, maybe. You hear a lot of women in my age range say, I feel like I'm invisible. And so we had this group of young people and their friends and all the things that young people do. And we had this older generation there. And we made sure that you guys, treated your grandparents with respect, that you listened to their stories, that you learned about your family history. I think you guys probably know more about your family history than the average kid, because you grew up with not just mom and dad, but grandma and grandpa.
That's true. I do know that. So my dad's dad, so my dad's grandpa, my great grandpa, was a Lutheran pastor. Like, ministry set back in the family a long time ago. And then my great grandma, after great grandpa's first wife passed, my next great grandma was a musician and was an organ player at the church.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I think I see how all this set in many years later. And it's fun hearing that. And even like before that, my great grandpa's parents, like building their house and having a 22 to shoot the coyotes away, and like not having much anything, and like hearing those stories, which is a lot of fun getting to know. And now I do actually go spend time with grandma and grandpa, and like, hey, can you tell me that funny story about when you're growing up? All these things that you guys did that if I ever did that today, I get arrested.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I remember like going to my grandparents' house and sitting with my grandma, who was a character. I mean, she was just a character. And she would tell me stories about growing up on the farm and how they had a beehive. And her sister was terrified of the bees. And for some reason, the bees never stung my grandma. And so she would go irritate her sister to the point where her sister would get angry enough to chase her. And then she'd run over to the beehive, try to irritate the bees so her sister would get stung. I mean, you don't get those kind of stories unless you spend time with somebody, right? So, yeah, I think there's that. There's the history. There's the respect. There's just the extra love. Like, as a parent, you get tired. You get tired some days, and some days you are not your best self. And you're maybe more irritable, impatient. And to have that extra set of people who just love your child unconditionally, just like you do, but they have the patience from years of experience. So that on those days when you're like, oh, not again, my child just spilled their milk off the table for the second time or third time or whatever.
Umpteenth
Time.
Whatever number that is.
Yes. It's big. We know that. To have somebody who'll come over and just give that child a hug when maybe your response wasn't so great. Or I remember so clearly your grandpa coming. It would be, later at night. Your dad would be gone on a business trip. He did a lot of traveling when they were young. So that just was a blessing to have 2 more adults in the house then. But I remember at night picking up, like trying to get you guys to pick up the toys before bed. And I
still have to pick up all the toys before bed.
Right. It never ends.
What in the world?
Never ends. But just being so tired and trying to get you guys to pick up your toys and maybe just getting a little bit, cranky with you. Come on, impatient. Come on, you guys. It's been 10 minutes. We still aren't done. And Grandpa just came in and he would just start picking up. And I remember the first time he did that, I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm being an example. And he said, it would be more helpful. And this was, such a kind way to do this to me, instead of just saying, hey, listen, you're being unreasonable. You're the adult in this situation. Get it together and be nice to those kids. He just came in and he said, I'm being an example. Kids learn by watching us. It's a good idea to kind of get in there with them and help them so they learn how to do it. Gently, kindly. I never forgot it. Always appreciated it. It was those kind of things that were so helpful.
I'm trying to think of back when Grandpa used to be able to get up and down pretty easily.
It's a while ago.
Like thinking back on some of those times, I know also Grandma and Grandpa would take different ones of us on trips periodically. Was that a nice thing? Was that kind of hard?
No, it was great. We loved it. And the other thing that they always did, Grandma would, because she didn't work outside of the home, every time we'd have a new baby, she would, for probably 6 or 8 weeks after the baby was born, she would 1 day a week take the rest of the kids out for an afternoon or maybe the whole day, so that I could have time alone with the baby. I could rest. And she said, I just want you to have time to bond with the baby. And so she would take you guys out. It was usually on Wednesdays. And you would go. That
explains why we went to Chutes and Ladders so much.
You would go to Chutes and Ladders, or she might take you to the zoo, or she might just take you to the park or to Culver's.
Culver's was around back then?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so funny. I thought that was like newer when I was a teenager. It's like,
No.
oh my gosh, have you seen this new restaurant called Culver's?
No, or to McDonald's, or, or Grandpa. I don't know if you were in that
I went to Grandpa's office.
Grandpa would take you guys to work on Fridays, and you would go to business meetings, and you would learn how to sit through a business meeting and how to behave. And as you got older, he would give you little jobs to do in the office so that you would have an opportunity to earn some money or get a treat. And those were all just helpful things to me as the mom who was perpetually exhausted, often single parenting, or would have been if they had not been here because John was traveling. So, and we were trying to keep up, the farm and the horses and all that.
This isn't the only house we've lived in. We lived in Northfield, which I don't remember. That was so far back, I don't recall.
That was the townhouse over by St. Olaf. We lived there when you were, until we moved out right before Sarah was born.
And then we moved out sort of to the country, a little bit closer than where we live now, what I like to call Hoth Street, but I think it was like
Ibsen.
Yeah, Ibsen or something.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I always thought it was called Gibson because of
Ibsen.
the guitars.
Right.
Lived out there for a long time.
3 years.
Oh, wow. That seemed a lot longer than 3
I know,
years.
3 years, because it was from when Deborah, so Sarah was Sarah's baby. I was pregnant with Deborah. Deborah was born there. She's the only one who was born there. And then I was pregnant with Daniel when we moved in here. So I went through Deborah's pregnancy and then.
So now we've been here for over 20 years.
Yes.
And now this is like really the only life I really remember. Although something I do remember about that old house was the slivers you never quite knew were going to come from
terrible.
the staircase. I'm very thankful we don't have those here.
It had a wooden. It was like one of those old boxy
It was an old
farmhouses. I mean, now it'd be
like something you'd see get destroyed in Twister.
yeah,
like
exactly. But potential if you had the money to really fix something like that up,
which we didn't.
We didn't. But it was a cool house. It had a great yard too.
And a creepy basement.
A really creepy basement. Really creepy.
I remember having baby chicks down there though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then being scared when we'd have to go down there because of tornadoes for whatever reason. Like, I've seen the movie Twister.
We had
had
that experience though. We had a really big tornado come through while we were living there. Deborah was a brand new baby. I mean, she was like, I don't know, brand new, a week old, less than a week old. And terrible tornado went through. Your dad was on the police reserve, so he wasn't there because he was out helping. And I had to take all of you kids down to the basement. We spent a fair amount of the night down there. And in the morning, our very kind landlord came knocking on the door. And he said, I came over because I knew you had a new baby. I knew you were here without that John was gone. I just wanted to make sure that you and the kids made it through the night okay. I just about cried. What a nice man. He was so nice.
And all these different things. But like starting to move out to the country, that was a dream of Dad's, right?
Yeah, he wanted horses.
He wanted horses. Not a dream of mine. I've talked about that before. I don't want horses.
I like them.
But
I didn't like them then, but I like them now.
That's because we only have 2. We
I
used
know,
to have
they're
11.
perfect. They're perfect.
11. That would
was a lot.
escape. And one in particular who would lead the charge.
Every time I would get you kids, like by the time we moved here, we had all 7 kids, right? And 9.5 down to newborn. I'd get the little ones down for a nap, get the older ones settled in for, you guys would have like book time or quiet play time or whatever. I'd be like, I can sit down for a minute. I can have a cup of coffee. I can just chill. And then I'd look out the window and there'd be a horse in the backyard.
Like, which is not where they belonged.
That is not where they belonged. Or in the side yard or on the driveway or walking toward the road.
Or at the farm.
Or standing outside the front door. Hey, can I come in? Yeah.
Grandma and Grandpa didn't really help with the horse.
Yeah, no. They didn't like the horses.
But having Grandma and Grandpa enabled that,
Yeah.
that dream, that ability to start moving out towards the country become possible. And then the combination of you guys with Grandma and Grandpa financially enabled this house that my grandpa designed.
Yeah.
And we got to help build with a construction company that Grandpa was friends with the owner. And then Dad would bring us out here and Grandpa would bring us out here to, as much as a kid can help.
Pound some nails. Carry some stuff.
Paint some stuff.
And
then have it all repainted because we didn't do it that well. Like that was pretty nice, like enabling dreams with multi-generations. And we're starting to run out of time here, but what would be some advice, Mom, that you would have for people who are either new to multi-generational living or are thinking about it but just haven't quite crossed that threshold yet?
I think my advice would be, we have house meetings, not all the time because we've done this long enough now that they're not really that necessary anymore.
It's just a culture here now.
Yeah, it's just the culture here. But set aside time to meet, be open, be flexible. Realize that that bowl you put away yesterday in the cupboard below the sink might not be in that same place when somebody's trying to bless you by putting the dishes away and doesn't know where it goes. Be flexible with things that, like, when it's your own house, you're used to your things being your things. Things don't matter. It's the relationships that matter. So just remember that. Like, that's a huge thing. Be respectful all the time. Like, that's something I think we just really, really worked on with you guys and with us too, right? And yeah, just be open to the fact that you're living with a whole bunch of people who are themselves, right? So, but also be honest. Don't just gloss things over. Don't be Minnesota nice, right? Be kind. Be honest. I would appreciate it if, you would have your children put their shoes here. And we've got I was just thinking about that yesterday. I know we're running long, but you can edit it out, so it doesn't matter.
I know. My camera runs out at 29 and a half minutes.
Okay.
But don't worry, we're only at 25, 23.
Okay. I was just honestly thinking yesterday about what a great routine the parents have here with their kids. You can imagine with so many people in the house, there are a lot of shoes, there are a lot of boots, there are a lot of jackets, and winter's coming. That's what got me thinking about this. It's going to be winter in not too long. So, I know. Don't think about it. But anyway, the kids have the greatest routine of coming in, taking off their shoes, and putting them away. Well done, parents. And then they know where they are.
That's the wives.
It's amazing because I did not have that routine with my kids, and their shoes were everywhere, and it was constantly a mess.
My shoes are still everywhere.
Yeah, so are mine. Anyway, but I just think that's so great. And so, encourage routines to be built. And try to be a blessing. I heard a sermon one time about, do you want to be the faucet or the drain? Right? Do you want to be the thing that fills someone up, or do you want to be the thing that takes something away? And so just as you're going through your day, try to be a blessing. If you see something that needs to be done, that it would be a blessing for you to jump in. If you see something that needs to be done and it wouldn't be a blessing for you to jump in and help, don't jump in and help.
Still working on that one.
Yeah. It's well, and you guys have your own, with when we were raising you, we had grandma and grandpa, us, and you kids, right? You have another element because you have you guys and your family and Daniel and his family. And that's a whole other thing that you guys should be writing a book on about that.
How to live with your sibling and not kill each other.
Yeah.
Too long of a title. I'll have to work on that one.
Bestseller. Now we'll have to think of a better. But yeah,
we're brothers, and we're both married to women.
Oh, brother, where art thou? Oh, wait, that's already been done.
I feel like that'd be a good one.
Yeah, right.
An Odyssey.
Yeah, right. True that. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's it. And then the one thing I didn't say about at the beginning when we were talking about how we sort of started with this was that the agreement was grandma and grandpa would help us raise the kids, and then we would be here to help them as they were aging. And they really don't need that much help at this point. They're doing well for their age.
Grandpa owns and runs a business. He bike rides all the time, and he chops and carries wood.
Yeah.
It's a man's man.
Yeah. And he could have retired 20 years ago, and he didn't.
But he can't cook at all.
Well, that's not his generation.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So anyway, just that we would agree that we would be here to help them. So that's what we're doing.
All right. Well, I am going to bring my mom back to talk again about multi-generational living, because I think that it is important for more people to do, especially young couples, in helping raise their kids to be excellent and not, be whiners or disrespectful or self-righteous in any way. And living in a multi-generational home has generations of understanding that is really helpful. Mm-hmm. And so, Mom, I want you to come back, and I want you guys to come back. And if you want to be able to hear that next episode, I'd encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the little notifications so you get notified when every episode comes out. Follow us on Instagram and on Spotify, with new episodes being released every Thursday on Spotify and Friday on YouTube. And you can follow us in our daily shorts as well, because I'm going to be getting those back up. But we look forward to seeing you next time on
Welcome to the Medins.